Since I'm a researcher, I'm fascinated by the concept of all of these different voices coming in from your community that form, in a way, a focus group. How do you feel about news as a focus group, and how would you say that might help or hurt the way you want to form your business?
You know, it's interesting that you say that on two levels. One, on a purely editorial level, well, we don't look at it like a focus group. We like to have different opinions, mostly because that's interesting and because that's what humanity is, and so that's why we want to have different voices, in our conversations and from our community. But the idea of a focus group is actually an idea that we have thought about as a way, as a very next generation way of marketing and monetizing what we're doing. Because we do have this very active group of community members who weigh in, who have strong opinions, and are the kind of people that I think brands and companies want to hear from. So we've thought about, doing a kind of thing where I think this is down the road a little bit, and I think we have to sort of till the soil and to get the advertising community to think about this. But wouldn't it be great if an advertiser came in with a product or an idea or a concept and sort of opened themselves up to the community and said, listen, this is what we think. Here's why we're passionate about this product. What do you think? It's a high wire act. It takes a certain amount of courage and bravery, but I think we're seeing more and more brands that understand this. This is a very interesting thing that's happening, a very interesting time that we're in, particularly when it comes to social media, right? So everybody wants to play on that field, but that's a very volatile field, right? You sometimes can step on a mine in that field, and so brands try to come in there and they try to be authentic. And I think the people who consume social media, they're very finely tuned and sensitive to when something is authentic and when it isn't. And so I'll give you a great example. McDonald's in Canada put out a video, I think it was about a month ago, where they showed what it takes to make a Big Mac look like a Big Mac that you see in the commercial. Right? It takes hours, and they have a guy who sprays it like a bun fluffer, and he makes sure the lettuce is gorgeous. And then they showed, well, how come my Big Mac that I get when I get it from the store doesn't look like that? And they were very brave, and they were very forthcoming, and it went viral, and people loved it. And I think that the perception of McDonald's Canada really raised, and it really elevated, because people were thinking, wow, they're being straight with me. I like this product, and they're telling me why, something that maybe many people had observed and thought about, and they're being very forthcoming about. So I think that's a really interesting area for brands and advertisers and marketers to move into. And I think using sort of the concept of community as focus group can play really into that in a very exciting and innovative way.
Do you choose commentators and guests from across the spectrum? Is there a way of deciding based on your feedback from your community as to what stories you'll cover or what commentators you'll choose?
This is all very iterative. We're really in the middle of figuring stuff out. It's still early, and every day we try to change. Every day we try to learn something. So, we certainly are listening to our community about what subjects they're passionate about. And listen, as I said, we're not creating a new brand, so we're not starting from scratch. It's not tabula rasa. We have the Huffington Post, and we know what the Huffington Post community responds to. We know what stories are clicking. We know what stories are going viral. What are trending. So we don't follow those trends, but we allow ourselves to be informed by them. It's not only like, what's the most popular story and that's what we're going to do. That's not what we do. We have a very strong editorial process, a very strong editorial vision, and so we don't just follow whatever's most popular. There's stories that we think are important, so we're going to talk about them, whether they're popular or not. But it's a nice blend. We want to talk about things that people are interested in, because we really see what we do. It's more than just a metaphor. We actually see it as like a great dinner party. And so that's how we try to book our segments, right? If you were going to have a dinner party, you're trying to throw the greatest dinner party possible, you'd invite all the interesting people who had strong opinions that they could share and talk about. And you would not then try to sit there and preach to them and say, this is what you need to say. You would never do that at a dinner party. You'd say, oh, what do you think? Oh, that's interesting. And then somebody else would join in, and then somebody else would join in. And that's really when our platform works best, is when our community members and our experts and our hosts start talking to each other. And it's not just an interview, now you, now you, now you, now you, but a real conversation.
You probably have a lot of experts on your air, and your community may actually contain some experts, people who really know the deep down and the back information, but probably a lot of people who comment are not experts. How do you weigh the opinions of experts versus non-experts? Do you think there's value in simply somebody who's interested and who has an opinion, or do you feel, that an expert with a lot of background information holds a little bit more weight? How do you balance that out?
I think these times call for an expansion of the definition of what an expert is. We've got data coming out of our ears, right? That's one of the great things that the internet has done for us, is something that might have taken you. I'm old enough to remember having to go to the library and go through the card file to get the magazine article, to use some strange copying device that would let me have a copy of that. I can find that information out in 2 seconds now on the internet. It's fabulous. It's great. But we can also have data overload, and I think that's kind of what we have now. And so what we've been dedicated to at the Huffington Post and now at HuffPost Live is sort of using narrative and using storytelling to put flesh and blood on that data. And I think that's what connects with people. And by the way, not just in a commercial way, it's what works for me as a consumer of news. If you tell me a statistic, I kind of go, intellectually, I know that's bad, but it doesn't resonate with me. It doesn't stay with me, right? And so I think, Pulitzer famously said that, you tell it briefly so that they'll read you, and at the end, tell it wonderfully so that it'll stay with them. So you want these stories to stay with people. And so that's really what we try to do. So for me, what is an expert? Well, an expert is somebody who has skin in the game. It's not just somebody who can spew data points. I mean, anybody can read that, memorize that, come on, and sort of, pretend that they're an expert, or even if they are an expert, even if they study it, what does that mean? But if you have some personal connection to that issue, we don't just want opinion. I mean, if you come on and go, I don't like Obamacare. Why? Just don't? I don't really find a lot of value in that. But if you say to me, it made all the difference in the world to me because my daughter had a pre-existing condition and we couldn't get her covered, and now we can, well, then you're an expert. You have something very real to share with us, because it's really all our stories, right? I mean, narrative storytelling, that's how we connect with any issue. And so I think that's the secret. I mean, not to slyly bring this up, but the Huffington Post won a Pulitzer Prize this year, and we did it by doing a 10-part series, Beyond the Battlefield. David Wood did an amazing job of reportage. But what he really did was he didn't tell us how many veterans had been wounded. Sure, he did, but that wasn't the only thing he told. He told us their stories. He told us the stories of the people they'd left behind, the people, at home. He told us, their struggles, all these really incredible stories. And that's why it resonated. And that's why I'll probably never forget some of the stories that I read in his 10-part series. It's because he made it human. So that's what we're doing. We're bringing people who have something to say, not because, they think thoughts, but because they have feelings that are connected to the issues.